On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 67, created on January 2nd, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me this week, Jeff is in a basement in Green Bay, and Neil is now out on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
I did drive from Wisconsin back to the East Coast this week, and I went through Mars Cheese Castle on the way. I kind of hedged my bets as far as how the Packers would do. I was concerned that I might need to use the Derriere as my beer, but thankfully the Packers came through, and believe it or not, the Packers won.
All right. As John noted, I am in my mom's basement, as any good podcaster might be. And tonight I'm going with Untitled Art and Chocolate Graham Cracker Pastry Stout.
All right, I mixed up a drink called an Ocean Breeze.
It's beautiful, John.
It was supposed to be more green. I mixed blue curacao with pineapple juice. Blue and yellow make green, does it not? It should be more green. All right. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. What are we talking about this week? It was a happy new year in week 17, and we are getting ready to wrap up the season. We will be at home against the Chicago Bears. That means it's tailgating, and we're going to bring back our friend Kate to talk about tailgating. But first, Jeff, you didn't want to spend New Year's Eve with us, but our ghosts from last week did their part, and boy, did the defense show up on Sunday Night Football.
This was the game. This was the defense that we had been expecting to show up. It did take the ghosts of Christmas past, clearly, to make it show up. This is what we've been waiting for, at least I've been waiting for, all season.
I think the most important number, other than that key statistic of the final score, was the pressure that we put on the Minnesota quarterbacks. We had 14 quarterback hits in the game. We had pressures on 58% of the dropbacks by the Minnesota quarterbacks. If you're putting that level of pressure on the opposing quarterback, you're doing your job. And their line was not as good as our line because they blitzed on 76% of their dropbacks, and they had a grand total of 0 sacks on Jordan Love, only 3 quarterback hits on Jordan Love. Our line was better than their line. Our defense was better than defense. Our offense was better than their offense. And while the special teams kind of sucked, but it didn't matter in the end because we were so good in the other phases of the game.
With that said, we need to get the ghosts of defensive past to now really go talk to Rich Bisaccia as threatened. But like you said, Neil, we've been pleading with defense. Just get in there and put the pressure on and do something. And everything starts up front. When you have that pressure up front, your defensive backs are going to be good no matter what. And that's just, that goes back 30 years. When you watch how Reggie White played the game, he made everyone behind him better as well because he was putting on so much pressure. There wasn't a lot of time for double moves and things like that. And it really showed up. I mean, Minnesota had a couple of bright plays, but for the most part, this was a strong defensive effort. Can't believe that we're saying it, but it also took 17 weeks for us to really expound on Joe Barry's defense.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary with 8 pressures, Kenny Clark with 6 pressures. But I think you're not giving enough credit to the D-backs. Yes, they had less time, but Corey Ballantyne had a really fabulous game. In addition to the interception, 3 passes defense among 7 passes defensed by our D-backs. I think 7 passes defense is more than like the last 3-4 weeks combined for this defense. They were playing clearly much tighter, and they took the challenge of Justin Jefferson. They took the challenge of Jordan Addison and said, no, we are going to be the better team. We are going to take their best players and we are going to take them out of the game. There was really very little that was done by either of their stud wide receivers. And that's not just the defensive line. That's not just the edge rushers. That is also because of stellar play by the D-backs.
In addition to the defense playing so well, it was the number of 3 and outs that they generated and really, really short drives. So the Vikings had 11 total drives. 8 of those 11 drives were 5 plays or less. Now, that doesn't include the 2-play touchdown drive, as it were. Thank you, asshats. And 1 kneel down for the end of half. And the other 3, which were sustained drives, field goal, turnover on downs, and turnover on downs. Again, this is exactly what we've been waiting for. We thought week 2, week 3, early in the season, defense might carry this team. Didn't happen. Offense stepped up. And in a weird way, they decided, hey, let's pick a game where we're both going to play our best game.
Right, as we've said before, offense is based on precision, defense is based on disruption. It's a lot easier to get that disruption. And we expected, the defense to be disruptive early. They had their struggles. But what I do like is our offense, that precision has come together. And wow, did the offense look great.
Although not on the first drive. I would say that, we're in the Metrodome. We're going to still call it the Metrodome for other historical reasons. We're playing in the Twinkie Dome, and, that certainly has been a house of horrors many times over the years. And certainly when we chose to get the ball on offense first and then went 3 and out on our first drive, that was certainly discouraging. Although thankfully the defense stepped up and said, no, this is going to be our game. And we went through on our next drive. Although again, our next drive, we only ended up getting a field goal. But overall, we obviously followed that up with the Ballantyne interception and our own 2-play touchdown drive, including the gorgeous pass to Jaden Reed. In the first quarter, the Packers had 101 passing yards. The Minnesota Vikings had 0 passing yards. Overall, 141-31. That is how you start a football game.
But unlike most weeks, they continued to roll.
Four quarters.
We got our 4-quarter game, did we not?
And the second quarter was arguably even better than the first quarter as far as how we moved the ball. And it was really the sustained drives that really made that second quarter so beautiful. Overall, at halftime, we had 16 first downs in the first half of that game. We had 265 yards of offense in the first half alone. The Vikings only had 81 yards of offense in the first half. That was utter domination, which is reflected in the 23-3 score at halftime.
Now, how much of this is due to Aaron Jones cooking? So here we've got another game. They get him started early, and he was good.
Aaron Jones, 67 yards rushing in that first half. But Jordan Love wasn't too shabby himself with 180 yards of passing, 2 touchdown passes, and a running touchdown in that first half. It was complementary football, which is the thing that we've talked about before, that sometimes they get one phase going, they get another phase going, they forget about the other phase. This game, they played complementary football. That is what led to that domination in the first half.
And I would argue when the defense doesn't generate turnovers, the offense doesn't get short fields. We got short fields here. And what I also liked is the offense kept their foot on the gas this time as well. They weren't just handing it off. They weren't going to settle for field goals. Again, I don't know what changed. I'm ecstatic that it did. But this is what was very different this game. The turnovers, the short fields for the offense, and the offense just going for it.
And in addition, every time it looked like maybe Minnesota had a chance to strike back, to bring the game closer, either the offense or defense did something. Let's go back to the end of the first half when we actually had a short drive starting at our own 12 and basically we're done within 4 plays. We punted to Minnesota, and Minnesota's got 39 seconds left. They passed for 8 yards in the first one. You think, oh shit, this is going to be the Joe Barry defense. And then immediately on that second play, strip sack for Preston Smith. The Packers get the ball back with 26 seconds left in the first half. 3 plays later, they score a touchdown to go ahead 23-3. Not 24-3 like it would have been ideal, but nonetheless, it was a quick strike after making the turnover at the end of the half. Instead of it being 7 points at halftime, it's now 20 points at halftime.
Well, in addition to that, they didn't even need that 26 seconds, right? I mean, they scored so fast, they ended up kicking off. That's what we've been waiting for. And it was fantastic. Yeah, 3 plays, 16 seconds, touchdown. I mean, that pretty much ended the game right there.
With a normal defense, it ends the game. But of course, we knew that there was at least a chance of this becoming close. But you're right, Jeff. The second half was basically the same thing. And yes, Minnesota started out their second half. They had 2 big passes in their first drive of the second half. And then we got into a situation that really did look like some of the previous weeks where Minnesota had a 2nd and 28 and managed to convert that over 2 consecutive passing plays. But thankfully, that ended up with the Vikings not scoring at all on the drive because they chose to go for it on 4th down eventually. And honestly, that, talk about moments in the game where there was fear among Packers fans. When they converted on 2 plays from a 2nd and 28, I certainly had concern that, oh shit, this game is going to get very interesting and not the way that I wanted it to be interesting. But no, we kept doing it on offense and defense beyond that point.
And then taking the ball, sustained drive after the turnover on downs, 90 yards, scoring the touchdown. And John, would you call that the dagger there? It was early.
Yeah, it was a little early for a dagger, but it sure felt like one. When you go up 30-3, it was a nice, comfortable lead at that point. And like you said, Neil, you don't know what is going to happen with this defense, but that would have been a lot of points for the, a big lead to blow. It would have been a historical lead to blow. So I'm glad that they did.
Although we certainly tried, because we stopped them on a 3-and-out. We decided, let's, Minnesota punts it. We're in great shape. So, simple situation. All we have to do is field a punt. We can kill some clock and possibly even go up 37-3. But, the asshats became involved there.
And one of our favorite football terms, the muff.
They ran into a situation where it became return by committee. Jaden Reed got injured, and I guess you do what you can to get someone back there. I don't know. Clearly, we don't know that Samori Toure was the right choice on that one, but there still has to be some situational awareness that he has to be sent out onto the field, call a fair catch or get away from the ball or something like that. And it just, you could tell something just didn't feel right.
Yeah, don't do what he did. That was the absolute worst case scenario. Like you said, let it go in the end zone. Fair catch it. Just stay the hell away from it. Don't touch it. He did none of those things.
Yeah, especially with the 27-point lead when you're about to get the ball back.
But the defense gives up a touchdown. But it was, 7 yards?
Yeah, right. There wasn't a lot of room to really play with there. It almost became a sacrifice after that point to say, let them score. Let's just get the ball back and carry on with the game. And I think that's kind of what happened after that.
Yeah, a 13-play drive that took 7 minutes and 55 seconds. And yes, it ended with a field goal because we decided that we're going to throw to Samori Toure one more time and go -6 yards on 3rd down. But nonetheless, Anders Carlson made the field goal. It's 33-10. This is a 3-score game that requires 2 2-point conversions, and there's not a lot of time left. And I think that we felt comfortable. And I think you could tell from the way the Vikings players carried themselves that they knew that the game was over at that point, because there was no urgency at all on that subsequent Vikings drive. It was just like, well, we're going to try to move the ball. And, they moved the ball okay. But in the end, it was that, well, we're obliged to play the game. We're going to try to play as best as we can. Nick Mullins obviously is playing for his job in the future, whether it's at Minnesota and elsewhere. But by the same token, it was clear that they did not think that they were going to win the game. They were doing the obligatory things that an offense needed to do. Our defense was willing to let them do those things and do it in a way that did not look like Carolina moving down the field in 19 seconds or in 20 seconds. It took the Vikings a fair amount of time to move down before eventually failing out on a 4-and-out. And at that point, we just sort of, let's throw in the scrubs and give Sean Clifford lovers some joy. And that was that. But it was a remarkably non-dramatic second half. It was very enjoyable after so many games that in the second half were really tense, and it made for a perfect New Year's Eve.
Looking back at this game too, you almost wonder if Minnesota didn't take a preseason philosophy to this game. Did they plan on making the quarterback switch at halftime? That had to have been in their pocket to see how well Jaron Hall does, right? I mean, it was a surprise that he even gets the nod to start, and then Nick Mullins coming in the second half. And I think, again, that's something that they plan. Let's see how he does. If it's shit, then we'll go to Nick and give them both an opportunity and in real-time game to, like you said, Neil, maybe play for their job next season to see where they're going to go, where Minnesota is going to go with Kirk. There's a lot of questions at quarterback for that Minnesota team. I'm glad that they have questions at that position and we don't.
I like the analysis that the person who gained the most on the Vikings from that game was Kirk Cousins' agent. Clearly, they do not have a lot of hope with the quarterbacks they have on their current roster. They need a quarterback for next year, and Kirk Cousins made some money last night. The people who didn't make money last night, though, were their star receivers. Justin Jefferson only had 5 receptions for 59 yards on 10 targets. Jordan Addison only 28 yards receiving. They were dominated as far as the total yardage is concerned. And the running game was better than usual, Jeff. They did get 67 yards rushing, but overall, it was not a great game for the Vikings offense. And that's reflected by the fact that even in the second half, the Vikings only had 130 yards of offense. They only had 211 yards of offense in the entire game. We easily beat that in the first half. We almost beat that in the second half, compared to our 470 yards of offense. 28 first downs for the Packers to only 13 for Minnesota in the game. And the stat sheet says what the real dominance was in that game. It was a beautiful game to watch.
I want to ask you both a question here. Going back to the first half and talking about putting points on the board. When we had that fourth down and we were in field goal range and going for it on fourth down, they drew up a play that worked, a pass, Bo Melton just missed it. But at that moment, even before the play was run, how did you feel about them going for it there when you have an indoor situation? You've got a kicker who he's been kicking well. Why not just put the 3 points on the board? How did you guys feel at that moment?
Well, and first of all, at this point, it was only 10-0 in the game.
Right.
And so, but I think for me, I did not have a problem with going for it, right? We went for it on third and one. What I had a problem with was the exact play call, and that why go for something that needed to be as far downfield as it was? Let's play something that's got the highest percentages possible. And 4th and 1 does not require throwing it 15 to 20 yards downfield. I was actually completely fine with it. Thankfully, it worked out in the end because, yes, Minnesota did score a field goal on their next drive. It was a 1-score game immediately afterwards. And certainly you can see, certainly there was some tension at that point. And you can understand why one should have possibly thought about kicking the field goal. But a 4th and 1 is a high percentage situation. And I think you just need to use a high percentage play in that situation.
I was torn because I would have liked to have seen him put points on the board, right?
Yeah.
Kind of take that. Now this kind of goes back to, and they weren't technically in the red zone here, but again, they were only two, if we're going to like nitpick here, they were only 2 for 4 in the red zone again. And then they were obviously the 24-yard line as far as they got here and turned it over. So, but to Neil's point, the play call was, we sort of went for it. So, in hindsight, it's like, okay, they were trying to trick them, again. So this was one of those things where it was like bad implementation. If Bo catches that ball, then everybody looks great. Love did get some pressure on him and he kind of threw it off his back foot. Was not an ideal play. But again, there are other, hand the ball to Dylan on 4th and 1 or 3rd and short even, and he's been stuffed on those as well. So, I guess I would have liked to have seen the points, but it turned out well in the end.
Going back to your point, Jeff, though, I mean, Melton was wide open. So I don't even know that it was very close to a perfect play call. So, we're really nitpicking on this element. It could have easily been a touchdown play on that 4th and 1. And then we're talking about this entirely differently. We're talking about, the guts and the going for the glory and doing everything you need to just ram it down the Vikings' throats. And it damn near was that on that drive. It just ended up needing a little bit more time before that happened.
You know what I'm most happy about, though, John? The fact that we're nitpicking here.
Right.
Versus
like in the moment, though. That's why I said put yourself back in the moment, because we were texting at that moment, and you guys saw my real-time response was put the damn points on the board.
Yep.
And for me, in the moment, it was about momentum. You had 3rd and 1, and it was a long one, and they went for the love shove, and they only got 2 out of the 3 feet that they needed. And to me, the momentum wasn't there, and clearly that's why they didn't try the same play again. But I just felt like they weren't prepared for the play to run, and then they take the timeout, and I just to me, it was a momentum feel. I would have put the kicker out there to get 3 points on the board.
On the other hand, the momentum wasn't there because the love shove had tiny Bo Melton and Aaron Jones pushing Jordan Love, and maybe put some bigger guys behind Jordan Love to push this thing to completion and get the first down.
Mr. Dillon?
As far as the game goes, Jeff, we didn't get to spend New Year's Eve in Minneapolis. I'm done giving you a hard time about that. Just a quick story. I don't know how superstitious you guys get with your sports. I've always been a little stitious, as the line goes. We were at a friend's house New Year's Eve for a New Year's Eve party and watching the Packer game. And during the entire first quarter, I helped my friend Jim make homemade pizza. So we were really in the kitchen listening to the game for the entire first quarter. I sneaked in and got to watch a little bit of it. Everybody else is in the basement watching on the big screen and things like that, right? And at the end of the first quarter, I'm in the living room watching the game. Jim comes in, finally goes, "Oh man, they're up 10-0. I didn't see a single play in the first quarter." I said, "Well, that means you have to stay in the kitchen the rest of the game." And there was one point during that first quarter where I went downstairs, and the Vikings started to surge. And I said, okay, I can't stay down here. I got to go back upstairs. And I was helping in the kitchen a little bit more. And then when it came time to like put the food downstairs and everybody started eating, same thing. I went down there, put my plate together, kind of peeked my head into the big room, said hi to everybody, and the Vikings are making a drive. I was like, okay, the whole feng shui just did not feel right. I went back upstairs, hung out upstairs through halftime. I said, okay, 23-3. I think I'm comfortable that I can hang out downstairs. And then second half starts, and there was one point where the Vikings were making another push, and I kind of jokingly said, had they scored there, I would have gone back upstairs again, but my wife already gave me the stink eye, so I definitely have to stay down here. That was kind of part of the joke that I said, yeah, it's just that feeling. You can't say anything other than it's a feeling.
So basically what you're saying is this victory is because of you.
Because I stayed upstairs away from everybody. I was in the right seat in the right room. Yes. There's everybody.
Well done, John.
I am not the only person who has these types of superstitions. And there are certain shirts you wear, certain socks you wear. And I think everybody is already planning their wardrobe accordingly for Sunday. What are you going to eat the day before? What are you going to eat the day of? So we'll talk about maybe our Sunday superstitions in a little bit because we're getting ready for our guest to join us.
John, I did
Neil?
none of those things. I was a scientist. None of that fucking matters, okay? Just watch the goddamn game.
You are no fun, Neil.
One final wrap up as far as statistics on the game is concerned. So Aaron Jones, as we know, had a fabulous game, but 20 rushes, 120 yards, a 6.0 yard per attempt average. That again speaks to our offensive line. Jordan Love, 24 of 33, 256, 7.8 yards per attempt, 3 touchdown passes, 1 touchdown run, and 82.7 QBR on the game. That's damn near perfect. And in contrast, Jaron Hall in the first half had a QBR of 1.1. Almost as bad as you can be in the first half. The best against the worst. Beautiful football. It was a fun New Year's Eve.
So 2 shout outs. First of all, somebody that actually had a better passer rating than Jordan Love was Sean Clifford. Come on, Neil. He had 100. He was 1 of 1 for 37 yards, no sacks, and a 100 passer rating. So 2 other quick shout outs.
Time out. Jordan Love was 125.3 passing rating. So yeah, you need those touchdowns to pump up that traditional quarterback rating. Clifford was lovely on his one pass, and whatever. It's good for the Clifford truthers to get something to be able to grab a hold on with their teeth. But
it took Sean Clifford to get a receiver over 100 yards this season.
True. Bo Melton is the first 100-yard receiver with 105 in that game. And yes, we can thank Sean Clifford for that. So I hope we don't see Sean Clifford again until next year. I hope 2 years from now, we're trading him for a second or third round draft pick from some team that's a bit more desperate, like hopefully Seattle or something like that.
And then finally, a shout out to Tucker Kraft, who might have learned not to hurdle.
Yep.
And in this game, very clearly, when he had the opportunity to, as he was meeting a defensive back after a catch, he lowered his shoulder and did not attempt to hurdle the would-be tackler. So,
but this was the one time he probably should have, because that tackler was trying to get really low. Damn low there. Yeah, I think that's one of those things that maybe Tucker will work on, and situational awareness on when to make the jump.
Tucker's mom will be happy for the possibility of grandkids. I think that's the one positive of that play.
And we are joined by a guest. This is our first return guest, you guys. So she must really like us. Her name is Kate. She is a Colorado girl in a Wisconsin world. We've met Kate in person a few times, both in Green Bay and our Denver road trip. And we kind of started the season with Kate. We're going to end the regular season with her as well. Kate, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be a repeat and end a season. Thank you.
Now, we were just talking about the Minnesota matchup, and I was talking about the little bit of superstitions that I had watching the game. Do you do anything special when you're watching the game at home, or even on game days themselves when you do come to Green Bay? Are there certain things you have to do or things to wear or anything like that are part of your routine?
No, I am I don't want to say I'm anti-routine, but I'm pretty anti-routine. All of the dogs that I have, I research them to make sure they don't have to eat at like they don't eat just once. They all be freed because I can't keep track of a routine. So I don't do anything special. I watched at Buffalo Wild Wings this last weekend. I don't wear anything in particular. I think I wore a hoodie. I don't wear like a special jersey or anything. So maybe my thing is I can't wear the same thing that I wore last week because that would probably be the only thing that I'd do.
At least you pay attention to it though. Say, oh, I wore that last week. I can't wear it this week.
I do. Yeah, I guess I switch it up. I have so many Green Bay clothes that I could probably wear something different for probably like 6 seasons straight and never repeat anything. I guess I'll have to continue that.
I'll throw one out there. I have a friend who does this, Neil. She cannot have Packer gear in a laundry basket waiting to be folded if the game is on. So she has to have her laundry done so that you know how people like to keep their laundry kind of just in the basket. Hey, it's clean. I just got to fold it and put it away. If it's unfolded, clean clothing, Packers lose according to her. So she now has to fold the clothes and get that's the thing that motivates her on game days in season.
You guys are lucky that's not my thing because we would lose every week. I have so much laundry all the time.
I don't even know where to go with that, Kate. Hey, let's talk about
my dryer's piled all the time.
let's talk about our road trip real quick. Let's revisit Denver. How was your weekend in Denver? I assume you got to see family?
I did get to see my family. My dad hung out with us all weekend so that he could hang out with my son. So he watched him. We got to go to an Avalanche game, which is always fun. They won, which is nice. The Packers lost, so that was the downside of the trip, but everything was great. I got to go down to the Springs and check out some of my favorite restaurants that I haven't been to in a while. See my family. Yeah, it was great. It was a good trip. How was your guys' trip?
We loved it.
Well, other than Jeff, but
Jeff
I
stayed
had
home.
COVID. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We had, but the condo we rented was literally what 3 blocks, Neil, from the stadium, and we had a rooftop balcony. So we got up one morning and watched sunrise over Mile High Stadium or Empower Field or whatever you want to call it.
and it was 3 blocks away from a brewery. So after the game on Sunday, we're drowning our sorrows in fresh Denver craft beer, which is always good.
Great.
Yeah, so Denver was a good trip. Season in general, tailgating with Kate. You had a few times in Green Bay, and your friends, Jan in particular, I know made it back for at least one game.
2, because she
2.
went to, yeah, she came up for the Buccaneers game. And then we went to a Milwaukee Bucks game later that week, and then she was here for the big tailgate.
And how's the Cheese All That podcast going?
It's good. It's good. We just had an episode last Tuesday. We have one coming up on Friday. We are going live at 8:15 on Friday, Lambeau time, 8:15.
Now, I know you go live, but do you record it so that people can watch it later as well?
Yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. I also put it out on Spotify, just obviously the audio. So if you're more of an audio, like in the car person, we are on Spotify as well.
All right, and people can just search for Cheese All That, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
All right, well, with that, let's take a look at tailgating. The Lot 1 tailgate party will be going. So the kickoff is 3:25 p.m. on Sunday. That means the parking lots open at 11:25 a.m. Neil, you're going to be able to go all night Saturday night. You don't have to worry about getting up early Sunday morning either to get over for tailgating. So we should have a good day on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a good weekend. I'm going to be driving the Lambo Jeep to Green Bay on Friday, and we'll have a good weekend in the GBC, as it were. So, yeah, hopefully, I don't know if you're working, John, but I'm hoping to see you more than just while you're working in the Lot 1 tailgate as well.
Something to tell you about the tailgate all season long. Typically, I run the playlist, and I try to cater for different games. We talked about this when we had Matt on the show, and I opened each game with a love song. And our titles for the game for our podcast this year have had all been songs with love in the title. I'm doing only love songs for the tailgate on Sunday, and they'll be rock and love songs. We're not talking, Air Supply and Hall and Oates here. We're gonna have a lot of fun with this. So I'm looking forward to the playlist that I put together for Sunday. Weather looks pretty good, cloudy, mid-30s. Kate, are you joining us? You're not gonna make it, are you?
I'm not going to. I always think, oh, maybe I could just drive up there real quick, but it's quite a drive. But I do know some people I'm sending your way, so I will make sure that they visit Lot 1 and have them take a shot ski. I will send them straight to you.
Yeah, spread the word. The Lot 1 tailgate party is going to be ready to go. But with that said, Neil, I know you want to tell us all about the Chicago Bears coming to town. You've already done the analytics. What do we need to know?
Let's start out. Are we actually afraid of this Bears team? Right, they're now 7-9. I mean, if the Bears were to beat us on Sunday, we'd end the season with an identical record to the Bears. Are you feeling a little bit of fear of the Bears?
No.
No, no,
What
based
are
on
we
that,
supposed to?
this is a team, they also started off 2-5. And so since then, they've gone 5-4, and they have been playing better late in the season. But just that, right, that mere prospect of knowing, last season we were 8-8 going into the last game. We needed to win to get into the playoffs. We had a division rival coming to town, a team that traditionally had been a doormat in the league, but the Detroit Lions were on the rise last year. I don't want deja vu all over again this year. I certainly do. Yeah, it clenches the cheeks up a little bit thinking about both the Packers and the Bears finishing with 8-9 records. Because if Minnesota comes away with a win there, because what's Detroit playing for? Really, not much. So Minnesota comes away with a win. You got the three teams at 8-9, and that bumps you down because I think Minnesota gets the tiebreaker and moves to the number 2 spot in the division standings that way.
So let's talk about the Bears streak, though, right? They've played well, right? Everyone's there. They're sort of the hot team. By weighted DVOA, they're actually 7th in the NFL right now because of how well they played. Now, I don't know where those numbers are coming from because the Bears have won 7 games this year. Their wins are over Washington, the Raiders, Carolina, Minnesota, Detroit, Arizona, and a falling apart Atlanta. I don't know where you get all of this momentum of this Bears team beating everyone other than Detroit as a bad team. But there are certainly some numbers for the Bears that are encouraging if you're a Bears fan. And I know, Kate, you've got to deal with a lot of Bears fans down there in southern Wisconsin. My family is all near there. I've got plenty of cousins who are Bears fans, unfortunately, right around where you are. And overall, as far as numbers on the offense in yards per game, the Bears are actually second in the NFL in yards per game running the football at 145 rushing yards per game. They've averaged over 200 yards a game the last couple of games. The other side of that, however, is their passing is extremely weak. Justin Fields is still Justin Fields. They're 27th in yards per game, passing at only 186 yards per game. And, you look at sort of all of the other passing statistics and it just looks bad. They're 24th in the NFL in sacks allowed on offense with 45 sacks allowed. In contrast, the Packers are third in sacks allowed at only 29. They do have the 5th most rushing first downs, the 10th most rushing touchdowns, and their third down percentage is actually pretty good at 41.9%. So they're definitely a team that is going to have sustained running drives. We're going to have to make some plays with our linebackers and with our front 7 as far as stopping their running game. The other thing, though, about the Bears is that they're also good in defense against the rush. Their overall defense is fairly middling. It's not the monsters of the midway by any stretch of the imagination, but they are first in the NFL in rushing yards allowed per game on defense. They're only allowing 84 rushing yards per game. So it sounds like a game where we're going to need Jordan Love to keep playing the way he's been playing the last quite a few weeks because they're definitely stout against the run, but they are only 20th in yards per game allowed against the pass. So they were certainly allowing passing yards. Now, they've got some other weird numbers as far as their defense is concerned. They're first in the NFL in total number of interceptions on the season on defense. They've taken the ball away 22 times by interceptions, but they're only 30th in their total number of sacks on defense. They only have 29 sacks on the season. So it's sort of difficult to figure out what those numbers overall mean. They're good at some things, but they're certainly not good at other things. Defensively, they're second fewest rushing first downs allowed in the season, but they're 29th overall in defensive third down percentage. So, Jordan Love has been really hot in recent weeks on third downs. He's had a lot of these 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8 type of conversions. He's done it passing. It sounds like this is going to be a good situation for Jordan Love against this Bears defense.
The statistic, Neil, that I heard that was very interesting. Montez Sweat was traded from Washington to Chicago mid-season, and he currently is the Washington sack leader on the season with 6.5, and he has the potential of finishing the season also as the Chicago sack leader in the same season. So I don't know if that's a testament to how good he is or how bad the rest of their defenses are playing. So 6.5 sacks in 8 games in Washington, 6 sacks in 8 games in Chicago.
Yeah, but if he's the only one that's making sacks, and he's going against our offensive line that has been the third best in the NFL as far as preventing sacks. We've only allowed 29 sacks this year. I'm feeling pretty good, and especially against the blitz-heavy Minnesota defense, they allowed no sacks. I'm feeling that we've got a decent chance, even against this person who's a mid-level or high-level sack monster.
Yeah, the only thing that I hope that obviously our defense has been good and bad. You know, last game they looked great. The game before that it was like miserable. So I just hope that the offense can get out there, play how they've been playing, get us ahead, so we don't have to worry about if the defense looks messy like they have. I know it's the Bears, but also we said that about like the Giants. We're like, oh, it's the Giants. It's the Broncos. Like, you can't just say it's the Bears. I'd like to, but they're very mid-level, so it could go either way. So I'm just hoping that the offense goes out there guns a-blazing and is ready to roll.
As far as our defense is concerned, we can look at some of the positives. So overall turnover ratio, the Packers and Bears are both basically about even. As I said, the Bears are third overall in takeaways, but they're 23rd in giveaways on the season. The defense is going to have the opportunity to do some of the things that they did against Minnesota and give the offense a short field. And I think that that is certainly something that is, we're looking forward to these big play abilities that our defenders made last game, that we're hoping that this is something that is going to continue on for the Bears and hopefully into the playoffs.
Neil, do you have any numbers on the asshats?
So DVOA, both teams are more or less middle. The Packers are actually up to 9th overall in offensive DVOA, 28th defensive DVOA. Special teams, we're 27th, they're 21st. They're teams that aren't great, but we're the only team that has a kicker that's missed 5 or even 4 extra points on the season. Let's hope that that does not come into play this week.
Jeff, you like to talk about the Lambeau mystique as well. Packers are 4-3 at home right now. Is there enough there to push them to 5-3 with this game?
Let's hope so. Not all the players. Obviously, Jordan Love didn't start in the debacle last year against the Lions, when everybody sort of the expectation was that they would just get into the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. So hopefully lesson learned from that debacle last year, and that no matter what the rivalry with the Bears, but also don't discount the Bears, because I think that hopefully this team is not going to discount, like perhaps they did the Giants, or overlook, or whatever you want to call it. This is for all the marbles, right? This is not for the division championship, but this is a ticket for the Packers to get in the playoffs as a very young team, as we've discussed, and to learn about that. And I'm hoping that whether it's Lambeau mystique, whether it's just pulling their head out of their ass, or whatever they have to do to take it seriously, to be able to not discount the Bears and do what they did against the Vikings, which was fantastic. Best game all year.
Now, Kate, I follow you and interact with you online, particularly on Twitter. I know you keep the receipts on the Jordan Love detractors. So talking about what Jeff just said, Aaron Rodgers, right. We expected Rodgers to get the Packers in the playoffs last year with that game against the Lions, and he faltered. And there's been a lot of comparisons on what the Love legacy is compared to, what Aaron Rodgers could have done for us this year. Also comparing Love to Rodgers' first season as a starter. Does a Packer victory on Sunday over the Bears, getting into the playoff, solidify the legacy of Jordan Love?
I mean, I've been a Jordan Love stan forever. I mean, I wouldn't say since he was drafted, because I knew nothing about him, but shortly after I was on board. But I think he already has. So I think that would just be the nail in the coffin. Like, you really can't say anything because if he gets us into the playoffs, because he's played well for, I would say, 75% of the year, which as a starter, a first-year starter, that's really all you can ask of him. Like, he has gone out there, and even in the games that he hasn't played well, it wasn't like I feel when Rodgers didn't play well, you were like, man, he just does not give a crap. Like, he is out there playing like he's tired, like he's an old man, like he just doesn't want to be there anymore. But even when Love was playing really bad against the Giants, it was like he was still putting all of his effort in. So I think he's more than proved himself. I think he will be with Green Bay for a very long time. I hope that he can sustain this, and that it's not just like I don't think it's a fluke season. I think he's wonderful, and I think he's exactly what they wanted him to be and what he was molded to be. I don't know if you guys saw the Colin Cowherd video that I did retweet it today, I think, but he was saying that's how they do it in Green Bay. So I think he's really just going out there and proving exactly what they wanted him to prove. He was molded into a Green Bay quarterback.
I think more than anything, it's the character that he's shown as far as just being completely unflappable and always up for the moment. No matter what the situation is, he's not going to be just somebody who gives up on a game or anything like that. He's always going to be trying. He is somebody who is motivated to be great. And he doesn't talk that way a lot, but you can tell it just from his actions. And just to follow up on your point, Jordan Love, since week 11, 16 touchdowns and 1 interception. 16-1 since week 11. A lot of other numbers, but for example, since Pittsburgh, he's tied for second in passing touchdowns in the NFL with 20. He's in fourth place for total passing yards since the Pittsburgh game with 26-42, 6-3 record since that Pittsburgh game. This is a quarterback who clearly wants to be great. He has that internal motivation to be great. And we're seeing that evolution from the early part of the season where he wasn't seeing everything as quickly as he needed to, perhaps at least not in every circumstance. He certainly had his flashes. Now it's not that you're seeing greatness in flashes. We're seeing greatness all the time, and we're disappointed by those rare plays where he doesn't hit the play perfectly. I think that you take the 4th and 1 where it was a bad connection with Bo Melton. That was shocking, I think, because they didn't hit it perfectly, because he's had so many plays that he's hit perfectly in the second half of this season.
And what he's done with no, what you could call a security blanket wide receiver or an experienced receiver that has any more than 2 years in the league, right? Or that has any experience really with any other quarterback. So again, you've got this really young receiving group, and the offensive line initially hurt and in disarray. That seems to have solidified. The play's gotten better, but you're right. He's seeing things, they talked about it on the broadcast, that the game seems to be slowing down for him, and that we're kind of already this first year, we're expecting greatness, and these receivers are becoming great and evolving with him, right? Because you've got, Bo Melton, who, who Bo was 3 weeks ago. He has a 100-yard game. And just when the receivers are healthy, when the 2 tight ends that we drafted are healthy, when things kind of gel, if they can get this figured out, because Matt LaFleur, although a reasonably young coach, does have, experience in the playoffs. So it'll be really interesting to see whether it's the Lambeau mystique or just Matt LaFleur getting the players motivated for the win against the Bears, but then also going into the playoffs. Because suddenly you get into this thing like, oh, which team, who's peaking and who's not. And clearly the Packers, I would say, definitely are more trending up than teams like Fly Eagles Fly. That's also really, really encouraging.
I mean, I would argue that we're the second best offense in the NFC over the second half of the season. I think San Francisco has just been so dominant.
Yeah,
we can't compare ourselves with them, but I mean, the Cowboys have been much more inconsistent than the Packers offense has been over these last 6-8 weeks. And just that's really encouraging. And of course, it's going to depend on the defense as far as obviously beating the Bears, but then whether we do anything in the playoffs. But going back to your point, the Bears have a really good top dog wide receiver. DJ Moore is 7th in receiving yards in the NFL this year with 1,300 receiving yards, as well as 8 touchdowns on 92 receptions. There's nobody in the Packers receiving corps whose numbers individually are at that level. It's just that collectively they are. And if you compare the collective numbers of these 2 quarterbacks, Jordan Love, 345 completions, 547 attempts, 3,843 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, as well as 248 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Justin Fields, while his numbers at first glance look to be reasonable, he's 61% completion. Justin Fields only has 354 passing attempts on the season. That's basically the same as Jordan Love's number of completions on the season. He's getting nowhere near the volume that Jordan Love is getting. And this relates to the fact that Justin Fields only has 1,619 passing yards on the season. He has less than half the number of receiving yards as Jordan Love has in the season. And based on that, only 16 touchdowns, he has 9 interceptions. Somehow Justin Fields has been sacked 10 more times than Jordan Love has on the season. And, do you say Justin Fields, while he's a great running quarterback, he's got 4 rushing touchdowns in the season, same as Jordan Love. So there's no real comparison between these two quarterbacks as far as what they're able to do on the field. And the Packers are certainly putting everything in Jordan Love's hands. Other than the last few games where the running game has really been doing something, the Bears can't put everything into Justin Fields' hands, and he's been performing at the level of, well, a relatively middling quarterback. His overall quarterback rating is only 23rd in the NFL among quarterbacks this year. So we've got a huge advantage at quarterback. And I would say the only thing that I've been encouraged by as far as this Bears streak over the last few weeks is I'm hoping that it encourages the Bears to keep Justin Fields as quarterback for the long term, pay him a lot of money, and not use that number 1 overall pick on somebody who's actually going to be good.
Regardless of that, this is a team that has a lot of draft capital coming up. They're going to be flush with cap space. The Bears, yes, they're coming on strong second half of the season, and unfortunately, they really have nowhere to go but up with their future, or their potential, I should say, depending on how well they pick players or bring players in moving up. But you're right, Neil. It would be nice to have them look at that and say, oh, yeah, maybe Justin Fields is going to be the guy that will help them stick around, because it looks like they're sticking with Matt Eberflus as well. And that seems to be a winning combination for Green Bay. So we have a big game on Sunday, Packers-Bears. Tailgating is going to happen. We've talked about it enough. We know the game is coming up on Sunday. Let's talk big picture things, Kate, because you got into podcasting, and there's a lot of women that are really getting into this. Now, whether you're looking up to, a Kay Adams or an Aaron Andrews or even a Pam Oliver, who, they're on TV, they're involved. We're seeing a lot more on the female side getting into not just football, basketball, everything. Just even doing something as small as podcasting. What does that do to kind of change the presence? You've got 2 friends that you made in Jan and Danny that you do this. Is it empowering for you? Is it fun? Is it something you feel a duty to?
Probably a little bit of all of that. I mean, I stumbled into all of this. Like, I never had any intentions. I still don't have any intentions of like making a career out of anything like this. This is all fun for me. But on the flip side of that, having a smaller scale outreach, I think really helped. Yeah, I meet a lot of dads out there that show our show to their daughters, and kind of they have a bigger connection with us because we kind of know them on a personal level. So I think even that like smaller audience is really important, because these little girls that are my friends' daughters won't necessarily get to meet Kay Adams or Erin Andrews, both amazing women that I personally look up to. They probably don't have a chance to meet those women, but they might be able to come to a Packers game and meet me or meet Janet or meet, any of the other women that are doing podcasts right now, and make a connection. And so, yeah, that's where that duty part comes in, where I want to make connections with girls that are wanting to do it on a big scale, because if they see my show, or they see, Janet has a couple other shows, some of these women that do shows, if they see that and they see that we have an audience, then maybe they feel like they can do it too. And that's important. It's hard and it's rough and it's not fun sometimes, but I think about the girl that we talked about on the last podcast, where she went to her first game, the Panthers game. She's in Carolina, and she went to the first game that she's ever been to with her dad. You think about those girls, and that's what it's about for me. It doesn't matter that I'm never going to be a Kay Adams or anything like that. Like, just getting a young girl excited about football is what is important.
From a relationship perspective, though, isn't that what all guys want? Is they want a partner who's going to be as into sports as they are? Shouldn't guys be saying, yeah, let's get more women podcasters, because we want women that we can talk to about our favorite team?
They love that until they know more than them.
Until you know.
And there are guys out there that doesn't bother them, and that's wonderful. But there are a lot of guys out there that's very intimidating when a woman knows more about sport. I could school a lot of people on hockey A lot of guys on hockey, and that might be cool to them. But a lot of guys, they don't like that. Football, I'm not as knowledgeable. I'm really like, I'm too simple about football because I'm like, just go out there and like throw the ball and catch the ball. Like it can't be that hard. I don't talk about schemes. I don't talk like I'm a numbers person. I don't know if you guys saw my tweet where I had to rip that guy apart because he was saying Fields played 4 less games, so therefore him and Jordan Love are the same because Justin played 4 less games. But I'm like, it mathematically doesn't make sense. That's the part that I like is like the factual stuff. Yeah, guys get weird about that stuff. They
They
say they
do,
want it, but
don't
they get
they?
weird. They get really
Some
weird.
guys,
Some
some
guys
Some
do.
guys. Some guys.
Some guys do. No, we enjoy having you on. We enjoy watching your program as well. And I'll let Neil chime in on this one. The Taylor Swift phenomenon in the NFL. I think you have feelings on this as well. Now my daughter, who's 18, finally started paying attention to football games, but her friend gave her a Kansas City Chiefs t-shirt for Christmas. I said, it's fine. I'll live with it as long as you're paying attention to football.
Yeah, I have a lot of feelings on a lot of things. You guys know that. But the Taylor Swift thing, it was like really overdone at the beginning. Now they're not doing a lot with it. Like she gets shown once a game. Who cares? But you know how many people she got into this sport? Like if every single person that is in the NFL isn't thanking her at the end of the season for like growing the fan base, they need to be because that woman can literally say that she likes a brand of anything and that brand will blow up. A lot of people owe her a thank you for making them more money, to be honest. And that includes podcasters and things like that because the more people you have into it, I know women that are like doing all their research now because Taylor Swift fans are crazy and they like want to know everything about everything. And so if Taylor's into it, like they want to know everything. So I have friends that are like, I want to know everything about football now. So everyone better be thanking her. That's all I'm gonna say.
One other related element to that, the NFL has been trying to grow their game internationally. And I would argue that Taylor Swift has done more in the last 3 months growing the game internationally than the NFL has done in 30 years. I've certainly seen, I certainly have Twitter friends all over the world, and there's definitely more NFL interest as a result of Taylor Swift outside of the United States than the random game that you have in Frankfurt or London. So.
And I hate that they're all Chiefs fans, but like whatever. They'll eventually realize that like that's not the way to go and they'll branch out.
There
And
are other teams, yes.
Yeah.
yeah, when Travis Kelce maybe doesn't play for them anymore, maybe they'll get a different team. I don't know. That's the unfortunate side is that the Chiefs really gained a lot of fans, but you win some, you lose some, I guess.
Yeah,
I think they still
but
trailed the Packer fans by a lot.
and Chiefs fans are perfectly fine, and I like Patrick Mahomes anyway, so I can't begrudge the Kansas City team for that.
They're in the AFC also, so it's
Right. We'll tolerate it. We'll tolerate it as an AFC team, but also, Neil's coming from his soft spot for Taylor Swift in that statement as well.
He's a Swiftie, huh?
He
Oh
is.
yeah.
I love it.
So Kate has the Cheese All That podcast with her friends, and you can find them on Twitter, follow them there, or follow Kate at the Co-Girl with World, Colorado Girl and Wisconsin World at. But you said Spotify for the audio, YouTube for the video. If you don't catch it live, catch the recording as well. Are you going to do off-season podcasts as well?
I think the plan is to do off season where we'll probably talk about if things are going on in the off season, we'll talk about it. But we plan on doing more like fun games about us three and like just kind of focusing on things that we enjoy so that in the off season everyone can kind of get to know us a little bit too.
All right, with that, gentlemen, again, it is week 18. It is the last regular season game. It is a home game. Chicago Bears are coming to town for an afternoon matchup. Neil, you're coming into town for the game. We'll be tailgating out there as well. Let's get our final thoughts. Jeff, what do you got?
Like we talked about earlier, will there be Lambeau mystique? Will Coach LaFleur get the players motivated? I'm optimistic that we get a win and into the playoffs. It's not an expectation, but I'm optimistic that a win at Lambeau in January. Packers are favored, so it's whatever we can get going to get a win and to move on into the playoffs, just to make things a little more exciting and interesting this year. I'm all for it. The team overall didn't finish as high as I predicted. I mean, I had pretty lofty goals coming in, but I tell you what, these last number of weeks have been pretty darn exciting. to watch as a fan. And go Pack, beat the Bears.
I'm excited rolling in. I think if we can get into the playoffs, it really sets a precedent for next year, which I think is important. So I'm stoked. The Bears still suck. They're gonna suck on Sunday, and that's where my faith lies.
I compared Jordan Love to Justin Fields, and Jordan Love already at 4,091 total passing and rushing yards in the season, 34 total touchdowns. Justin Fields only 2,249 total yards passing and rushing on the season, only 20 total touchdowns. So Jordan Love is almost doubling him in both of those categories. But of course, Justin Fields is a Bears quarterback, and you have to judge Bears quarterbacks by the standards of Bears quarterbacking. And one of the neat elements about this season has been Jordan Love not just taking the mantle as a starting Packers quarterback, but reaching a level where he is better than any other Bears quarterback ever. Looking back to the history of Bears quarterbacks, the best Bears quarterbacking year, as far as yards and touchdowns, was Eric Kramer in 1995, in which he had 30 total touchdowns, 29 passing, 1 running, and 3,883 yards combined. Jordan Love, as I said, 40-91, 34 total touchdowns. He's already 4 touchdowns ahead of the best quarterbacking year ever for a Bears quarterback. He's already beyond the most total yards for a Bears quarterback. This is his first year in the NFL as a starting quarterback. We've got a great future ahead of us. I'm looking forward to the Packers beating the Bears. I'm looking forward to seeing the first iteration of Jordan Love in the playoffs and the first of many iterations of Jordan Love in the playoffs. Go Pack, go.
And my final thought really is just that we need more guests on the program, because I get tired of you two guys. I need other people to talk to so that we have some more interesting shows going on. All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave a comment, find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and on Facebook at the GBC podcast Green Bay Chat. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.